where are you?
Where are you, bears?
Are you bears in front?
Bears, where are you?
Bears, where are you?
Deep in the forests of Transylvania in Romania, Europe's largest population of brown bears still roam freely. But what does that mean when a busy city like Brașov sits right on their doorstep, and when a family hike in the Transylvanian forests becomes a search for bears? I'm Rosie Holdsworth, and you're listening to Wild Tales, European Brown Bears.
Goodness me, Mummy.
Goodness me, Hebe. So we're mixing things up today and doing things a little bit differently because I'm interrupting my lovely holiday in Transylvania in Romania to tell you a little bit about what we're up to today. So I am with my lovely husband Rob and our little girl Hebe. We are hiking in the Tampa Hills above Brașov, which is a really beautiful medieval town, about 3 hours north of Bucharest, the capital. And we are going to see if we can see some wildlife and hopefully spot some signs of bears. It's very beautiful November day. The sun's shining, the leaves are crunching.
A bear's scared off our bells.
And the bears are scared off by our bells. That's my toddler on my back. So you can hear the bells that we've brought with us, and that's because bears don't like to be surprised. Nobody likes to be surprised, but bears particularly dislike being surprised. So we're staying safe by making lots of noise, which is easy when you've got a toddler and they like to sing as you walk. But we'll keep looking. But when we were out the other day, we did see some bear tracks, which were very fresh from that morning. So we're hopeful that before we have to go home, we might see bears. So what exactly are my family and I walking amongst? Csaba Domokos is a biologist with a Romanian conservation charity called Milvus Group, and he spent more than 20 years working with brown bears here in Transylvania, so he knows their habits very well.
Brown bears in Europe are basically the largest land predators. We call them large carnivores, but they are in fact omnivores. It's a brown bear, but the name can be somewhat misleading because brown bear's color can actually range from a bright yellow to a shiny black. For example, here in Romania, among the rural population, there are all kinds of myths about black bears and all these other species, and this is mainly because of this very wide range of colors they can have, and also the very wide range of body sizes, just as with people. So we have like smaller bears, and then we have true behemoths as well. The more you go towards the north, their bodies get usually bigger and bigger. But let's say a very big bear in Romania would be something up to 400 kilograms or something like this. And that animal is already very, very big.
To give you some context, that's the equivalent weight of 5 grown men.
They are incredibly strong animals, so you cannot compare them really to anything else in nature, I think.
That includes their rather unusual shape.
They do have a shoulder hump, and it's basically made up mostly from muscle. They use these huge muscles, for example, to turn over rocks, to look for ants underneath them. So bears have 5 fingers basically on each paw, and each of the fingers ends in a huge claw, which they use for digging up stuff, or they use them as precision tools, for example, for opening clams and feeding on clams. They are big, powerful animals. People see them usually and they have this strange type of body, and then they somehow assume that it's a slow animal somehow, but they are incredibly fast, so they can easily reach up to 50 kilometers per hour. They can basically outrun a racehorse. So it's really an unbelievable animal.
So with all of the incredible wildlife that Transylvania has to offer, what is it about bears particularly that has got me in bear fever and scuttling about in the woods, desperate to see any signs of them? I mean, I've always loved bears. They're one of my favourite animals. It kind of goes back to childhood. We used to watch The Jungle Book on repeat whenever we went to my granny and grandpa's house. And I think Baloo the bear just was like the character that, that kind of really chimed with me the most. They're such big, charismatic, fascinating creatures. The fact that they're still here and they're still doing their bear thing, minding their own business, bumbling about in the woods, it's just amazing when you think about the change that's happened in some of these habitats and the pressures that those animals are under in what is quite a small area. Romania's not a massive country, but they're still here. They've carved out their niche and they're being really, really successful. So I would absolutely love to see them whilst we're here.
Which does make you wonder just how many bears are actually out here.
The exact size of the Romanian bear population is really a subject of hot debates for many years now. The official numbers put this population around 10,000 individuals, but actually a little bit above this. It's probably the biggest national population of brown bears in Europe, actually.
A massive population for a country of this size. Romania was kind of Eastern Europe's last stronghold for the brown bears. Due to conservation efforts and protection, they've been able to spread back through the Carpathians out into other countries. And this is kind of where the recovery of the European brown bear population has started from. But we're probably only about an hour out of the city centre of Brașov, and there are bears here. So that's absolutely incredible.
So in Romania, in reality, bears share their habitats with people. People from Western Europe tend to think of Romania as somehow like the land of wilderness, which in a way it is. Every single individual bear needs an area usually of several hundred square kilometers. And if you think about it like that, then there is actually not a lot of space left wild in Romania. So basically, every bear here will eventually come into contact with people, and most of the individuals of the Romanian bear population spend at least a few good months of their lives each year close to cities and to villages.
What are they for?
Bears can't off with our bells, Mum.
That's right, the bears are scared off by our bells. We keep ourselves safe.
We're doing all the right things and making plenty of noise, but it does raise another question. What are the bears actually eating out here?
They are really carnivores that have adapted to some degree to also eating plants.
Which is good news for me and my family.
Eat a lot of plants, but they also eat a lot of insects, and then they also actively hunt, but they also scavenge both animals that died of natural causes and the prey of other carnivore species, because they share their habitats with grey wolves and with Eurasian lynx. So whenever they can, they will actually try and steal the prey of these other species as well.
When you're at the top of the food chain, you can do that.
One of the most important diet items for brown bears are ants, in a somewhat surprising way. And they eat basically ant hills with ants' eggs and larvae, and with dirt.
But there's one thing that bears seem to love more than anything else.
They actually do like honey a lot, and they will try to raid both wild bees and beekeepers' property as well, and they do raid them quite often.
It's not just about having a sweet tooth.
Honey is extremely nutritious. It's really high on calories, and bears are basically machines looking for a very high calorie intake. Especially when they start preparing for their winter sleep, they have to accumulate a huge amount of fat to be able to live from it throughout the winter. There are some studies suggesting that they can consume up to 20,000 calories every single day. And honey is really, really high on calories. So whenever they can, they will actually go for it.
So right now, these bears are eating constantly, preparing for what comes next.
So we're deep into autumn, it's November, and the bears are definitely starting to think about hibernating. So far, it's been pretty mild. There's not been much frost here. A lot of the bears are still active, and they've kind of, every year, they've got to do this balancing act really between staying out of hibernation long enough to put on enough fat stores to see them through the winter versus staying out too long and kind of burning those fat stores whilst they search for more food.
This is a really neat adaptation actually to the scarcity of food. It's simply a way of preserving energy of time when food is really scarce. So what they have to do is that they accumulate a huge amount of fat before that. In Romania, usually they go into this winter sleep somewhere around December. In this area where I work in Romania's Eastern Carpathians, they dig dens out for themselves. We don't have to imagine it like a big cave or anything. It's basically the size of the bear. So it normally has a small entrance, a really small one. Sometimes it's surprising how a big animal can squeeze through something like that. Then usually a small corridor leading to a chamber. Yeah, and the smaller it is, actually the better it is, because it can keep it partially warm throughout the winter. A bear will simply coil up inside one of these dens and then spend several months there without eating or drinking or moving actually. This is also a period when they are most exposed to disturbance by people. And this can be actually quite dangerous, both for people and for bears alike.
A bear suddenly woken from its winter torpor is likely to feel threatened and defend itself, which is why stumbling across a hibernating bear is something you really want to avoid. But as the days begin to lengthen and the first signs of spring appear,
the first to emerge are basically males, and then females that are single, or females that are accompanied by cubs of last year, so 2-year-old cubs. And then the last ones to come out are the females with newborn cubs, because this is one of the other very neat adaptations of bears, that they actually give birth to their cubs during this winter sleep time. This is also why it's so important that they put on a lot of fat before that, because then they will not feed or drink. Pregnant females, they will give birth and they will nurture their cubs entirely from the fat reserve they have accumulated before that.
as a mum myself, that completely blows my mind. Breastfeeding humans need about 500 extra calories a day. I ate an enormous amount of cake on maternity leave. But mother bears survive the whole winter on stored fat reserves, and often there's more than one newborn cub to feed.
So brown bear would normally have somewhere around 2 or 3 cubs actually. In exceptional cases, there have been also 5. Usually less than 50% of those cubs actually reach the age of 1 year.
Predators such as humans, wolves, and even other bears play a part in this.
Life is difficult in the forest.
But today, on our walk, there are bears still out there, eating, preparing, and waiting for winter. Which means that there's still a chance my family and I might spot one or two.
Where are you?
Where are you, bears?
Are you bears?
Because the bear population in Romania is so large, and also because they're quite close to some fairly big kind of urban centres, there is quite a big issue with human-wildlife conflict in Romania. So the Romanian government is kind of looking at that and looking at measures that can be put in place to kind of keep people and keep the bears safe, because where those conflicts happen, obviously not only are people in danger, but the bears are as well. And it kind of, you need public trust and public opinion on your side for conservation to be successful.
When living together with bears, on one hand, they do cause damages to human property. They occasionally kill livestock. They actively hunt sheep and cattle sometimes. And then they also cause damages in agricultural crops, for example, in fruit trees. So they really like these apples and pears and plums. But they don't simply just eat the fruits, then they will also break the trees while getting the fruit. Nowadays we have a lot of corn all over in Romania, so they can cause extensive damages in cornfields as well. Probably the most sensitive issue regarding bears is that they can also cause injuries to people, and occasionally, sadly, they can also kill people. These kind of incidents are quite rare even in Romania, I would say, and they absolutely pale compared to any other cause of human mortality. So I think we have somewhere around 20-something people killed in the last 20 years by bears. In most cases, these attacks are not by accident. They have been somehow provoked by people. So we cannot somehow separate bears from people or people from bears. And then we somehow have to find a way to coexist with them. This is, I think, possible. And the best proof for it is the fact that we still have bears. Think that maintaining some kind of social tolerance or social acceptance towards these animals is really crucial for their long-term survival.
And for Csaba, a biologist who works with large carnivores, coexistence sometimes means getting dangerously close.
I had a lot of very close encounters throughout the years with bears, and probably one of the most dangerous thing that we occasionally have to do is to free bears from these wire snares set up by poachers. Because these are really uncontrolled situations, you cannot really tell until it's too late how a bear is caught in those wire snares. A lot of times they are physically hurting, and these are really dangerous situations. There have been a few cases when we approached these animals, they actually broke these wires that were holding them in place. We had cases when there was a mother caught in a snare and there was its cub caught in another snare, and I was in between them and the mother broke the snare. And even in this case, she just ran away and even abandoned her cub. This somehow, for me, conveys the message that in most cases, you are fine. Brown bear attacks are not predatory attacks. They happen out of self-defense. And this is actually why most of the people will actually survive being attacked by a brown bear, simply because the bear is trying to eliminate the danger. And when you are knocked down on the ground or something, after a while, the bear will actually, most of the time, abandon the person there and flee. So what it does from his perception is that he's trying to eliminate that immediate threat.
And if you were to cross paths with a brown bear, what should you do?
If a bear is approaching you and it has noticed you, then basically you have to look as unthreatening as possible. So the first thing should be probably to make the bear realize that you're a person and you can talk to him, not necessarily shouting. You can raise and move around your hands so that they actually realize that it's a person, and most of the time this would be more than enough to scare it away. If an attack happens, it's generally you will end up on the floor, and you should lie on your belly and try to protect your neck, and try to protect your soft side. And the most important thing probably actually is that you should walk around with pepper spray, a bear-specific pepper spray. These are highly effective. I can really affirm that they work.
So in terms of keeping ourselves safe from bears, that's obviously, we've come out into the woods with our toddler. So that's obviously at the forefront of our minds. So we're being mindful to kind of make lots of noise. We've got our bells. Hebe's great at singing songs and chit-chattering, so we're not going to surprise any bears. But we've also got bear spray with us as well, should we be charged by a bear, which we can use just to give ourselves a little bit of space and breathing room.
I think it really teaches us somehow to walk around, let's say, in a forest with really all your senses tuned to the max and really looking out for for movements from the corner of your eyes, or looking out for suspicious sounds, for example.
Maybe we could all learn a little from this about tuning in and really paying attention to the amazing nature around us. Even if it's not a 400-kilo apex predator.
I'm getting a little bit excited because Rob stopped and he's got the binoculars out, so I'm hoping he's seen something. Maybe it's a bear, I don't know. Let's have a look. So I might sound a little bit out of breath because I got very excited and ran because Rob got his binoculars out and started looking up to the top of a tree. And I thought, maybe it's a bear, because they are really, really nimble climbers. Despite their size, they're very good at climbing. And they do spend some time up in the tops of trees foraging for food, and sometimes that's where the cubs go to kind of get out of the way of danger. So I very excitedly caught up, but it wasn't a bear. But it was quite an exciting thing nonetheless. So he spotted a load of crossbills, which are a really cool species of finch. They do what they say on the tin. They've got a crossed over bill, and they're a bird that's specialised in kind of picking the seeds out of conifer cones, pine cones, that kind of thing. So they've evolved and adapted this funny crossed over bill, and it's quite exciting to see them. It's not a species that I see very regularly. We do get them in the UK, in Scotland, and in places where we've got lots of conifer plantations, but I don't have much of that around where I am, so it's quite an unusual species, and there's loads of them. They're all chattering away up in the top of the tree. So not a bear, but very exciting nonetheless. So we've just been reflecting as we wandered through the sunshine and next to this beautiful little stream that this habitat here actually feels pretty similar to what we've got in kind of the northern half of the UK. It doesn't feel completely alien and completely different. These rolling hills and steep-sided valleys feel really, really very familiar. We were remarking that, 1,000 years ago in the UK, we would have had this incredible biodiversity and different array of species. We would have had Eurasian brown bears, we would have had beavers, we would have had wolves, we would have had all of these species which are now missing from our ecosystems, and you can really feel the difference. So here, these woods, they're not being actively managed by people, but because there's all of those different species here, you've got the wild boar crunching up the undergrowth and moving things around and giving opportunities for tree seeds to sprout. We've got big deer species, but they're being moved through the woodland by the wolves and by the bears. There's lynx who are predating on the smaller deer. Everything's kind of much more, I'm not saying it's perfect here because people are everywhere and people are tinkering with things, but it just feels like much more wild. And it's kind of a little bit sad, really, reflecting that at home, one day it would have been like this, and it's not like that anymore because we've got the population, the pressures, the numbers of people around, and the changes that we've made to our natural environment.
But still, whenever I see a bear, it doesn't really matter if it's close or if it's further away. It's still really a mixture of admiration and this kind of feeling. And of, not even necessarily fear, but you somehow feel that there is something more than you there in the forest. You can experience this even without seeing bears, just simply knowing that you're in a habitat where there are things that are stronger and bigger and faster than you.
This was the exact feeling I had when we found the bear print a few days earlier. It's an amazing primal thrill that spikes your heart rate and fires your adrenaline through the roof. It's Mother Nature giving you a nudge in the ribs and saying, remember who's in charge here.
You ready for some hot chocolate? It's very hot. Slurp. Oh! Is that nice?
It's very
We'll let it cool down a bit. Why don't you put your hands on it and they'll warm up? Oh, that's nice, isn't it? So we haven't seen bears, unfortunately, but I have had a fantastic time in the beautiful, beautiful Carpathian Mountains. Really, really recommend a visit to Transylvania to anyone who's able to get here. It is an incredible place. The culture, the people, the wildlife, the mountains, it's fantastic. So from me and from the beautiful Transylvanian countryside, see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wild Tales. If you've enjoyed it, why not give us a follow or a review? And if you'd like to find out more about the European brown bear in Romania, then head to the episode show notes. I'm Rosie Holdsworth. Bye-bye!